Hi, and welcome to Mrs. PM Reads. I'm kind of super zoomed in here, so it'll be okay when I sit back. So we'll see how that goes. Hope you guys are having a great day. We are continuing in our story, A Man Called Ove by Fredrik Backman. And we will be in chapter 31 today. We are getting close to the end. It's a 40-chapter book. Thanks for hanging in there with me. All right, in chapter 30, which we just read, I just read. I don't know when you listened to it. Ove was reminiscing about how he and Sonia would spend their time, and he was at the cemetery. Parvana was still driving, and she had said she had a thought about maybe helping him put Sonia's things in boxes, and he got very angry. All right, so at chapter 31. There. Oh, see? Hi, I'm imperfect. Great. Okay. A man called Ove backs up a trailer again. The next morning, after letting the cat out, he fetched Sonia's father's old rifle from the attic. He decided that his dislike of weapons could never be greater than his dislike of all the empty places she has left behind in their silent little house. It was time now. But it seems that someone, somewhere, knows the only way of stopping him is to put something in his way that makes him angry enough not to do it. For this reason, he stands now in the little road between the houses, his arms defiantly crossed, looking at the man in the white shirt and saying, "I am here because there was nothing good on the TV." The man in the white shirt has been observing him without the slightest hint of emotion through the entire conversation. In fact, whenever Ove has met him, he has been more like a machine than a person. Just like all the other white shirts Ove has run into in his life, the ones who said Sonia was going to die after the coach accident, the ones who refused to take responsibility afterwards, and the ones who refused to hold others responsible. The ones who would not build an access ramp at the school, the ones who did not want to let her work, the ones who went through paragraphs of small print to root out some clause meaning they wouldn't have to pay out any insurance money, the ones who wanted to put her in a home. They had all had the same empty eyes, as if they were nothing but shiny shells walking around, grinding away at normal people and pulling their lives to pieces. But when Ove says that thing about there being nothing good on TV, he sees a little twitch at the temple of the white shirt. A flash of frustration, perhaps. Amazed anger, possibly. Pure disdain, very likely. It's the first time Ove has noticed that he's managed to get under the skin of the white shirt. Of any white shirt at all. The man snaps his jaws shut, turns around, and starts to walk away. Not with the measured, objective steps of a council employee in full control, but something else. With anger, impatience, vengefully. Ove can't remember anything having made him feel so good in a long, long time. Of course, he was supposed to have died today. He had been planning to calmly and peacefully shoot himself in the head just after breakfast. He tidied the kitchen and let the cat out and made himself comfortable in his favorite armchair. He'd planned it this way because the cat routinely asked to be let out at this time. One of the few traits of the cat that Ove was highly appreciative of was its reluctance to crap in other people's homes. Ove was a man of the same ilk. But then, of course, Parvana came banging on his door as if it were the last functioning toilet in the civilized world, as if that woman had nowhere to wee at home. Ove put the rifle away behind the radiator so she wouldn't see it and start interfering. He opened the door, and she, more or less, had to press her telephone into his hand by violent means before he accepted it. "What is this?" Ove wanted to know, the telephone held between his finger and index and thumb, as if it smelled bad. "It's for you," groaned Parvana, holding her stomach and mopping sweat from her forehead, even though it was below freezing outside. That journalist. What do I want with her telephone? God, it's not her telephone, it's my telephone. She's on the line, says Parvana impatiently. Then, before he could protest, she squeezed past him and headed for his bathroom. "Yes," said Ove, lifting the telephone to within a couple inches of his ear, slightly unclear about whether he was still talking to Parvana or the person on the other end. "Hi," yelled the journalist woman, Lena. Ove felt it might be wise to move the phone farther away from his ear. "So, are you ready to give me an interview now?" she went on in a gung-ho tone. "No," said Ove, holding the telephone in front of him to work out how to hang up. "Did you read the letter I sent you? Or the newspaper? Have you read the newspaper? I thought I'd let you see it so you can form an impression of our journalistic style." Ove went into the kitchen, picked up the newspaper and letter that Adrian Fellow had brought over a few days earlier. "Have you got it?" roared the journalist woman. "Calm yourself down. I'm reading it, aren't I?" Ove said out loud to the telephone and leaned over the kitchen table. "I was just wondering if," she continued valiantly. "Can you calm down, woman?" Ove raged. Suddenly, out the window, Ove noticed a man in a white shirt in a Skoda driving past his house. "Hello?" the journalist woman called just before Ove flew out the door. "Oh dear, dear," Parvana mumbled anxiously when she came out of the bathroom and caught sight of him careening along between the houses. The man in the white shirt got out of the Skoda on the driver's side outside Rune and Anita's house. "It's enough now. You hear? You're not driving that car inside the residential area. Not another bloody yard. You got it?" shouted Ove in the distance, long before he'd even reached him. The little man in the white shirt, in a most superior manner, adjusted the cigarette packet in his breast pocket while calmly meeting Ove's gaze. "I have permission." "Like hell you do!" The man in the white shirt shrugged, as if to chase away an irritating insect more than anything. "And what exactly are you going to do about it, Ove?" The question actually caught Ove off balance. Again. He stopped, his hands trembling with anger, at least a dozen pieces of invective at his disposal. But to his own surprise, he could not bring himself to use any of them. "I know who you are, Ove. I know everything about all the letters you've written about your wife's accident and your wife's illness. You're something of a legend in our offices, you know," said the man in the white shirt, his voice quite unwavering. Ove's mouth opened into a crack. The man in the white shirt nodded at him. "I know who you are, and I'm only doing my job. A decision is a decision. You can't do anything about it. You should have learned that by now. Ove took a step towards him, but the man put up a hand against his chest and pressed him back. Not violently, not aggressively, just soft and firmly, as if the hand did not belong to him, but was directly controlled by some robot at the computer center of the municipal authority. Go and watch some TV instead, before you have more problems with that heart of yours. On the passenger side of the Skoda, the determined woman, wearing an identical white shirt, stepped out with a pile of paper in her arms. The man locked the car with a loud bleep. Then he turned his back on Ove, as if Ove had never stood there talking to him. Ove stayed where he was, his fists clenched at his sides, and his chin jutting out as if he were an enraged bull elk. The white shirts disappeared into Anita and Rune's house. It took a minute before he recovered himself, enough to even turn around. But then he did so with determined fury and started walking towards Pravana's house. Pravana was standing halfway up the little road. "Is that useless husband of yours at home?" Ove growled, walking past her without waiting for an answer. Pravana didn't have time to do more than nod before Ove, in 4 long strides, reached their front door. Patrick opened it, standing there on crutches, casts apparently covering half his body. "Hi, Ove," he called out cheerfully, trying to wave with a crutch, with the immediate effect that he lost his balance and stumbled into the wall. "That trailer you had when you moved in, where did you get it?" "Oh, no," Ove demanded. Patrick leaned with his functioning arm against the wall, almost as if he wanted to look as if he'd meant to stumble into it. "What?" "Oh, that trailer. I borrowed it from a guy at work." "Call him. You need to borrow it again." And this was the reason why Ove did not die today, because he was detained by something that made him sufficiently angry to hold his attention. When the man and the woman in the white shirts come out of Anita and Rune's house almost an hour later, they find that their little white car with the council logo has been boxed into the little cul-de-sac by a large trailer. A trailer that someone, while they were inside the house, must have parked exactly so it blocks the entire road behind them. One could almost think it had been done on purpose. The woman looks genuinely puzzled, but the man in the white shirt immediately walks up to Ove. "Have you done this?" Ove crosses his arms and looks at him coldly. "No." The man in the white shirt smiles in a superior manner, the way men in white shirts, who are used to always having things their own way, smile when someone tries to disagree with them. "Move it at once." "I don't think so," says Ove. The man in the white shirt sighs, as if the threatening statement he makes after that were directed at a child. "Move the trailer, Ove, or I'll call the police." Ove shakes his head nonchalantly, pointing at the sign farther down the road. "Motor vehicles prohibited in the residential area." It says so clearly on the sign. "Don't you have anything better to do than standing out here pretending to be the foreman?" groans the man in the white shirt. "There was nothing good on TV," says Ove. And that's when there's a little twitch at the temple of the man in the white shirt, as if his mask has slipped a little, just a fraction. He looks at the trailer, his boxed-in Skoda, the sign, Ove standing in front of him with his arms crossed, the man seems to consider for an instant whether he might try to force Ove by violence. But he realizes in another instant that this would be very likely a bad idea. This was very silly of you, Ove. This was very, very silly, he hisses finally. And his blue eyes, for the first time, are filled with genuine fury. Ove's face does not betray the slightest emotion. The man in the white shirt walks away, up towards the garages and the main road, with the sort of steps that make it clear that this will not be the end of the story. The woman with the papers hurries off after him. One might have expected Ove to watch them with a look of triumph in his eyes. He would probably have expected this himself, in fact. But instead, he just looks sad and tired, as if he hasn't slept in months, as if he hardly has the strength to keep his arms up any longer. He lets his hands glide into his pockets and goes back home. But no sooner has he closed the door than someone starts banging on it again. "They're going to take Rune away from Anita," says Parvana urgently, snatching the front door open before Ove even has reached the handle. "Pah!" Ove snorts tiredly. The resignation in his voice clearly takes both Parvana and Anita, who's been standing behind her, by surprise. Maybe it also surprises Ove. He inhales quickly through his nose, looks at Anita. She's grayer and more sunken than ever. Her eyes are red and swollen. "They say they'll come pick him up this week, and that I can't manage to take care of him myself," she says in a voice so fragile that it hardly manages to get past her lips. "We have to do something," cries Parvana, grabbing him. Ove snatches his arm back and avoids her eyes. "Pah! They won't come to get him for years and years. This'll go to appeal, and it'll go through all the bureaucratic shit," says Ove. He tries to sound more convinced and sure of himself than he actually feels. But he doesn't have the strength to care about how he's coming across. He just wants them to leave. "You don't know what you're talking about," roars Parvana. "You're the one who doesn't know what you're talking about. You've never had anything to do with the city council. You don't know what it's like fighting them," he answers in a monotone voice, his shoulders slumped. "But you have to talk to," she begins to say in a faltering voice. It's as if all the energy in Ove's body is draining out of him, even as he stands there. Maybe it's the sight of Anita's worn-out face. Maybe it's the insight that a simple battle won is nothing in the greater scheme of things. A boxed-in Skoda makes no difference. They always come back. Just like they did with Sonia. Like they always do. With their clauses and documents, men in white shirts always win. And men like Ove always lose people like Sonia. And nothing can bring her back to him. In the end, there is nothing left but a long series of weekdays with nothing more meaningful than oiling the kitchen counters. And Ove can't cope with it anymore. He feels in that moment more clearly than ever. He can't fight anymore. Doesn't want to fight anymore. Just wants it all to stop. Parvana keeps trying to argue with him, but he just closes the door. She hammers at it, but he doesn't listen. He sinks down on the stool in the hall and feels his hands trembling. His heart thumps so hard that it feels like his ears are about to explode. the pressure on his chest, as if an enormous darkness has put its boot over his throat, doesn't begin to release till more than 20 minutes later. And then Ove starts to cry. Oh, that's a sad chapter. But maybe that release of tension will help him. I don't know. We'll have to see. That's the end of chapter 31. I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I will see you next time.